Lakshmi, Mahasaraswati, Mahakali, Trigunatvika, Kundalini Sakshat, Shri Adishakti, Mataji, Shri Nirmala Devi, Namo Namaha. Om Tvameva Sakshat, Shri Kalki Sakshat, Shri Adishakti, Mataji, Shri Nirmala Devi, Namo Namaha. Om Tvameva Sakshat, Shri Kalki Sakshat, Shri Sahasrar Swamini, Moksha Pradayini, Mataji, Shri Nirmala Devi, Namo Namaha.
I must apologize for being late, but we were held up in a funny way watching a big ship passing through and the gate would not open. I hope you don't mind. I bow to all of you who are seekers of truth. At the very outset, we have to know that truth is what it is. You cannot organize truth. You cannot conceptualize it. Unfortunately, you cannot know truth at human awareness. Whatever I am going to tell you today, you need not accept it blindly. But you must have an open mind, like a scientist, and if I am putting forward before you a hypothesis, if it works, then you have to accept it as honestly. The truth is extremely simple, that you are not only this body, this mind, this ego, these conditionings, but you are the Spirit. You are the divinity. And the second one is that there is an all-pervading power of divine love, which is doing all living work. For example, we take these beautiful flowers for granted. How a simple seed has created these beautiful flowers. We never even think about it. Even we don't think how we have been evolved from an amoeba stage to human level. There are so many things we do not think about. And there are so many things which cannot be explained to us even by science. I think only 25% things can be explained, whichever are very obvious. But the science cannot tell us how the periodic law has been constructed by which intelligent creator that he has put all elements in such a beautiful manner, which also indicates what new elements we are going to discover. In a human body, any foreign material that goes, it has to be thrown out. That's the nature of the human body. But when a child is conceived, it's not thrown out. It's all there. It's tenderly looked after, is kept, nourished, and at the right time, it comes out of the body of the mother. So it is to be understood that living processes we have not been able to explain, nor did we ever think about. I am talking to you about the living process of our evolution. Human beings are at the epitome of evolution. No animal, no creature, which they say exists here and there, maybe just a conjecture, is higher than human beings. Moreover, it's the only human beings who have got freedom. If they want, they can go to hell, or if they want, they can go to heaven. Now, at this time, when we call it a Kali Yuga, these modern times are already described as one of the worst times of darkness and ignorance. And people will be in lots of illusions. At these horrible times when we see all other shocking things happening in our lives, in our countries, in the whole world, then we start wondering who is responsible for all these problems. If we are a little humble, we'll find it's we, the human beings. We have gone wrong. This has been something wrong within us that we have brought forth all these problems upon ourselves. They may be individual or they may be collective. They may be national, could be international. So to solve these problems, supposing because of certain machinery, something goes wrong, then what we do is to attend to that machinery. So what we need is a transformation. And the time has come for us to achieve that transformation, which is described in all the scriptures. In the Bible, it is described as the second birth. Even in the Hindu scripture, it is described as the Brahmagyan, or you can call it again the second birth, the Jaha. It is described in the Quran, it is described in all the Buddha's teachings, described by Mahavira, is
Jai Shri Mataji. Jai Shri Mataji, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark Williams, for joining us this morning from Melbourne in Australia. And we're just listening to this talk of Shri Mataji, which is the year that you got your realization, isn't it? Were you there?
Yeah, it was actually my first public program. I
Oh,
remember it. Yeah.
fabulous.
Yeah.
Tell us about your journey. Where were you? What were you doing? How did you end up in this public program?
Well, I think I guess I was a fairly hardcore seeker from the point of view that in my mind, I really needed to find God. It was a very ardent journey and one that I was ready to give up everything for, very intense. And I'd done a lot of reading. I'd read all the, in fact, it's funny because in those days, every yogi that you meet had the same books, The Prophet by Khalil Gibran, all these sort of, there were these standard books that everyone had. So I had all those, I'd done all that reading. And, but one of the things that stuck with me was Socrates. And he was saying, that it's God's joke on humanity that the senses point outward, but the reality lied inward. And that only 1 in 1 million people ever got the joke. He is how he said it, that you had to basically look within. And so I thought, oh, look within. Okay, what does that even mean? Because you don't even know what you're seeking. What am I actually going to find? And I'd done a lot of reading, and it was very unsatisfying. I learned to meditate from a book, and it was relax your body, do this, do that. Nothing worked. But I was very, very scared of going to a guru because, in those days, of course, you had all those false gurus that everyone knew very, very well. They were in the headlines and they were wrecking a lot of seekers. And so I was very concerned that I had to find God on the one hand, but on the other hand, I didn't want to go to a guru. But it hit a point where it was obvious that like you need a teacher. You need someone to kind of guide you. It's a trackless forest, as they say. And so I thought, all right, I'm going to have to go and do this. So I saw an ad for Sahaja Yoga, free meditation. I thought, well, that's a good start. They don't want my money, and it was a pretty basic ad. So I thought, all right, it's not a slick organization or anything like that. So I thought, all right, I'll start here and we'll see what happens. And I came along and I got my realization at Burwood in Sydney. This was February 11th or 9th, I think, in 1991.
Wow.
And there were a lot of crazy people at that program. It was funny because I got it and I really respected what Shri Mataji was saying, and I felt like something resonated with the lady. I couldn't understand too many words also because I'd never even met an Indian person. I didn't understand the accent very well. I knew nothing about anything, but somehow I felt, yeah, she's just common sense. She's just speaking common sense. But I was surrounded by absolute lunatics at the same time, at this public program. And so I was really worried about what am I getting into, but I realized that the yogis themselves were actually quite normal and quite nice. But just the seekers who were coming were really on the edge, you could say. So anyway, I got my realization. I felt it. I went home and slept well and woke up the next morning feeling quite fresh. All right, okay, good. Then I got to the office. I was a photojournalist with the Australian in those days. It's a national paper, kind of like the Times, I guess you could say, big Rupert Murdoch sort of paper.
National newspaper, yeah.
Yeah. And I got thrown an assignment for that day, which was to go and actually photograph a very big, what we know now as a false guru. And again, not knowing anything, but thinking that all gurus somehow had something to offer or whatever. Okay, great, bring it on. I'm going to go do this. And so I went. It was a program at a big venue, and we got there, and everyone was holding hands and chanting all the stuff and all that. And I was there off to one side, and I said to the guy at the end of the program, like, do you guys have Kundalini? And he was like, no, Kundalini is very dangerous, because what I was feeling in the program was just all this cool vibrations coming out of my eyes and out of my ears and out of all the pores in my skin. And I felt fantastic, you know. And I thought I attributed it at the time to the experience of whatever this was going on. The guy said, "All right, I'm going to take you out now." So he takes me out behind the stage, and they were counting, there were all these guys counting piles and piles of money. And that for me was like, oh, you know, that just didn't feel right at all. And so when we got outside, I was just very bewildered by the whole experience, because while I was feeling somehow great myself, I could see this was just a money-making thing, and that the guy couldn't answer even basic questions about, you know, Kundalini or anything to do with kind of proper spirituality. And they were just talking sort of nice things from the Gita. It was like a typical, you know,
A
sermon, I guess.
marketing exercise.
A marketing exercise. And I was standing there, and a lady that I used to work with came out, and I said, "Oh, how was that?" And she said, "That was absolutely terrible. That was the worst $500 I've ever spent," you know? And I was like, "That cost you $500?" You know, she's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh, well," you know, because I obviously was a journo. I didn't pay anything to be there. Anyway, the story, I kind of deliberately didn't end up doing a great story on it. I just kind of like phoned it in, you could say, and they didn't run it, which was kind of my intention, if I'm being honest. So, so,
You
um,
had
uh,
that.
so yeah, so I was like, I don't think these guys deserve any
Yeah.
coverage. And anyway, I went to bed that night, and I had the two brochures. I had Shri Mataji's. I don't know if you guys have this in the UK, but it was a very simple black and white threefold. Had Shri Mataji's, the classic black and white photo. It
Mhm.
had the chakra chart. The chakra chart with the meaning of things, and then how to give realization and how to foot soak, and it was all in one thing. Very basic, but really informative. And then there was this brochure from this guru that was full of like gold encrusted sort of quotes from the Gita, and guru looking lovingly outward. And it was just really high production values and so on. And, you know, it reminded me, I don't know if you've seen Indiana Jones. I think it was The
Yeah.
Last Crusade. Yeah, it's the one where he has to drink the cup of Christ for eternal life. And this is how pop culture I am, I guess, you know, so I'm relating it to Indiana Jones, but here we are at this scene where there's all these gold encrusted cups, and all of the other sort of villains are drinking from those, and they're all dying. And then Indiana Jones realizes that no, it has to be the simple cup, because Christ was simple and he was a carpenter. And I realized this was my Indiana Jones moment, you know? So I threw the other thing in the bin, and I put Shri Mataji's picture up, and I went to sleep. And that night I had a dream where I'm in London, of all places, and it's a cobblestone street. It's raining, and it's very eerie and very creepy. And there's all these kind of like demons in the shadows and things. And I'm lost and confused. And then this lady, all in white, Shri Mataji, comes
Remember.
down, and I see her, and I run up to her, and I'm just like a little kid, like 6 years old or something. And I hug her legs, you know, and then she puts a hand on my head, and she says, "You're my son," you know, and then, oh my God.
So
So anyway,
sweet.
yeah. So anyway, I thought, I don't know who this lady is. I don't know what Sahaja Yoga is, but you know what? This is it for me. Like I'm home, you know, I found my home. And so right from that moment, I felt this affinity for Shri Mataji that's I mean, I just very much respected that she didn't want anything. And in those days, you know, there were all these questions, oh, it's a cult, it's this, it's that. But, you know, I never felt that. I just felt this wonderful, you know, connection to Shri Mataji. And right from day one, I was like, that's it. This is the way. And so that's kind of what I guess kicked it off. And so I was very ardent. In those days, we had the cassettes, you know, and
Right.
so after about 6 or 7 weeks, I'm saying to the yogis, "Can you just tell me who she is? Tell me who she is," you know? And they're
Uh-huh.
like, No, no, it's up to you. You have to work all these things out for yourself." Because I thought she has to be something really great, you know? Anyway, I was listening to this one talk of Sri Ganesha, which is the only cassette I had. I used to listen to it like every day, twice a day on the train on the way to and from. I knew this tape off by heart, but I was very bewildered about, well, what is this elephant-headed god? Like, what's that got to do with anything? You know, how does it fit in? I never even heard of this before, but I was ready to accept it because I felt that connection with Shri Mataji. But at the same time, I was just lost. Like, what is it exactly? So I'm meditating that night, meditating in front of the photograph, and I was just meditating, and I was talking to Shri Mataji, and I just said, Shri Mataji, who is Sri Ganesha, and what are all these deities, and how does it work, And anyway, I was looking at the photograph, and it started to shimmer, it started to shimmer, and then it became like this holographic 3D image. And so Shri Mataji was in that blessing pose, and it became 3D. And then all of these different deities started coming out of the photograph, like that I could see, like as holograms, And there was, one that was all fire, which obviously was Agni Devata.
Yeah.
Another one, a beautiful, very serene sort of goddess who must have been, say, Shri Mahalakshmi, for example. And I had no context. I didn't know any of this, but all these different, there was a Shri Hanuman, and all
Wow.
these other deities, Lord Shiva, they were all coming out of Shri Mataji. And I was looking at the photo, and of course I was, just struck by this. And then she just turned into Shri Ganesha, like her whole nature changed and she became Shri Ganesha. And then I realized, okay, so I got my answer. Who she is,
Very definitive.
So there was no mincing it, So anyway, one of the challenges that I always had though was, with the spiritual experience of it, that so here we know we're with someone who's very special, and we're on this journey, we're feeling vibrations, everything's good, but like how to meditate, like what is the state that we're after, And so anyway, I used to go to this ashram all the time, and I didn't know very much, but I was just super keen to learn. And I went to this ashram one morning, and we were meditating together, and I was sitting next to this guy, and I had my eyes closed, and next thing you know, my attention was just sort of drawn into his body. It was really strange. I could feel all of the nervous system activity in his body and the blood pumping around his veins. I knew his thoughts. Like I was thinking his thoughts even. Then I became like the carpet and the TV and the house and the trees, and all of a sudden my attention just expanded outward, and it became the entire creation, like all in one go, like just expanded out. And this rush of bliss in my heart was unbelievable. And then it hit a point where it sort of suspended, like it was hanging. And I knew that, no, this is my moment. I want to be completely one with God. Like, this is all I want. So I was just saying to myself, let go, because I kind of recognized that there was a shrinking feeling, and I knew it was my ego somehow. So I thought, I have to get rid of this ego because I want to be in this absolute state. So I was just saying, let go, let go, let go. And as I was saying this, it just popped. And then in that moment, I just became one, like there was nothing, like there was no me. There was nothing to feel. It was just I'd ceased to exist, completely ceased to exist at that moment. But what happened was this rush of bliss. Like, they say Satchitananda, truth, bliss, consciousness.
Yes.
I realized that God is, God is love, love, like sort of realized this incredible love. That's what it was. I was experiencing the divine in its purest form. And so I'm in this, but it felt like a baby. I felt like a baby in my mother's arms, complete security, complete surrender, complete love, acceptance, like just like that I'd somehow returned to the source of creation,
Incredible.
and that was an unbelievable experience. So anyway, sometime later I actually got to ask Shri Mataji about this. And I just said, Mother, I had this really lovely experience. And she was saying, no, that was your attention. And she was explaining that what happened was that, and it was too high for me to even grasp at that point. But she was saying that it's like a handkerchief. Attention's like a handkerchief. It can be spread out or it can be focused. It's like putting your finger through a handkerchief, and the handkerchief falls around your finger. So your attention can be focused or it can be expanded.
Horizontal, yeah.
Out. So she said you were experiencing your attention. That's
Oh.
what you were experiencing. And that wow, I'm feeling such good vibration talking about this. So anyway, yeah, I was feeling my attention, and she sort of left the explanation at that. But then in a talk later on, she was saying that, attention is God, and so on. And that kind of started me on that whole journey of like, wow, this is not, it's not cups of tea and Jai Shri Mataji and having a nice time. It's God. Like you are here to connect with the absolute. So I became really obsessed with all that. I read so much. Like I read everything I could get my hands on, from Ramana Maharshi to, the Das Bod by Swami Ramdas, the Jnanadeva,
Amritanubhav.
yes, because that's the one. And all of, and as they were explaining the experiences they were having, I realized, oh my God, I had those experiences like firsthand. And so what I realized was that what these great saints were talking about was not some mysterious thing that was off a million miles away. It was an everyday experience that's right there ready as once you go through your, your agya, and once you in Sahasrara, then this is your everyday experience of life. And so that was sort of, I guess, my first experience really with Shri Mataji, and my first experience of Sahaja Yoga in the, I guess, purest sense.
Amazing. Oh, that's incredible. The vibrations are so
Yeah.
beautiful. So I don't have a question, but there was an incident at a railway station around this time, or was it before
Oh
then?
yeah. Oh, actually, you know what? Yeah, this was just as I was starting to get fascinated enough to move into an ashram. So I was still living at home with my folks, and they were out in the boondocks in a very bad area, actually. And so it wasn't an area you go around at night. And unfortunately for me, I was on a late shift from work, and I had to travel a train at about 11 o'clock at night. And I ended up at this railway station at Blacktown, which is heavy. It's a heavy area. Not so much anymore, but in those days it really was. And
Yeah, we're talking 1991. Things were
I
different,
mean,
weren't they?
yes.
Technology, cars, the materialism of life.
So I got off the train and I'm walking up the platform, and I could see one taxi just, and I thought, right, I'm going for that taxi. And then when I looked at the top of the platform, there was a kind of gang of hoodlums, I guess you call them, at the top of the steps. And I thought, oh God, I've got to get past them, but I want to get that taxi. So I thought, well, what about if I just kind of run as if I'm getting the taxi? Just don't pay any attention to them, and then I'll be fine. So I kind of ran up the steps, and one of them came in front of me, obviously deliberately, and I hit him with my shoulder. And I thought, well, I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to pretend like I'm just going to pretend it didn't happen and just keep going. But they started following me, running sort of down the
Steps.
the landing, and I thought, I'm not going to make it to the taxi. Like I'm done for, And then I remember all these talks, as I said, I listened to a few talks by then on the old cassettes. And by then it was like, well, leave it to God, leave it to Shri Mataji, leave it to the divine. So I thought, well, this is that moment, So I stopped, and I just, before I turned around, I just said, Shri Mataji, I leave this to you. And at that point, I hadn't had any, apart from a couple of those experiences, like I was still feeling, still trying to try and understand who Shri Mataji was really, even though I'd had a couple of really nice experiences, I was still coming to terms with it all. But I thought, well, this is it. It's now or never. I just left it to Shri Mataji and I turned around and they all stopped. And we just looked at each other from, a couple of meters away. And I was kind of like ready, like for fight or flight. I was quite tense.
But you
And
were alone and there was a gang of them.
they
It's
were
a
again maybe
threatening situation.
six or
Yeah.
seven guys, and anyway, they were just standing there, and I was looking at them, and they were looking at me. They didn't say a word. I didn't say a word. I was just looking at each of them. And then after maybe 15 seconds, 20 seconds, they just one by one turned around and walked away. And then I just went and got the taxi home, And that was the moment when I thought, well, something happened there because they were ready to, do whatever. Something happened, and something happened in their brains, you know? So
Absolutely.
Shri had done something in their minds to turn them around and send them the other way. That's when I was like, okay, this again, like I don't know what's going on, but I'm just thank you, that I'm part of this, that somehow I've got this incredible blessing that I'm just with her through all this. So that in a way was my, I guess first you could really say miracle experience. Mm.
Oh, that's absolutely mind-blowing, isn't it? That the divine works in such subtle, mysterious ways. Here you are, a photojournalist, ready to be sort of, manhandled, beaten up, or whatever they could have done, and you surrender and think, Shamaji, leave it to you, although I don't understand you. And
But
she transforms these hooligans.
yeah, but the thing is that I had a couple of really bizarre experiences of this actually. I remember she came to Sydney once, and how she understands what you're thinking, like along those lines. So she was saying about, it's funny, and apologies to Russians in the audience, but I was living in Dubai. That this was like fast forwarding quite a few years. We were living in Dubai in those days, and I dealt with a lot of Russians, and I was having a lot of difficulty with them in Dubai. And then Shri Mataji was there talking about how great the Russians were, and usually I'm just like, every word Shri Mataji says is going in, but then something in me was like, no. No, that's just not my experience, like, no. And then she stopped and she said, all right, half of them are good. And then I realized she's read my thoughts. Like she read my thoughts, because there was no other explanation that she would stop halfway. All right, half of them are good. And then there was another experience very similar in Dubai. We had Shri Mataji used to come visit quite a lot over there, a few days here and there
Seriously, please
in
mention
between.
the years. Sorry, Mark,
Yeah.
to interrupt, but just
Oh,
remind us the years,
oh,
please.
okay. This would be to mid 2000, maybe 2007, eight,
Yes.
something like this. So anyway, um, there was a lot of chaos in that collective, the very new yogis, a lot of sort of, you know, pushy, I guess, wealthy people who didn't know anything about Sahaj, who just came along because they had money. They somehow felt they could kind of push in, and it was a bizarre place for that. And we were just feeling that, it's not, the vibe was really off at that time, and everyone was like sort of trying to get Shri Mataji's darshan, and you could see Shri Mataji was really uncomfortable with it as well. Like she even said, I just want the yogis. I did hear that much, and so we just decided, all right, we'll just keep our distance because it's too heartbreaking to see all this. So we just kept our distance. And then she was going to the airport to leave, and I was just feeling really bad about it because it was chaos and there were lots of stupid, I would just say straight out, stupid people around. And I was like, do I even go? And I thought, no, you have to see Shri Mataji off. Like, you have to pay your respects. You have to be there. So I thought, all right, we'll go to the hotel and we'll just see her off. So we went to the hotel and we were just standing where her car had come around. We we're just standing there. And then, she came out. And I just started crying because it was just heartbreaking, and she came to the car, and just in my heart I was just like, Shrimanji, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you had to feel this in your life, but I'm also sorry that I'm feeling like this. I'm just feeling bad about everything, and I'm so sorry. And anyway, she stopped by the car, and she was just, you know how she would just go around like this for people. She stopped and she looked straight at me. I was some distance away, and she winked.
She,
She
how did
winked.
you
She
wink?
winked. And then she got in the car, and I just melted because I realized, like, oh my God, it's just a game. It's all just a play. She just like, it's
Yeah.
just a game. It's just a
This
play. And it
is
really,
also time, wasn't it, Mark? In 2000, I think six, five, six onwards, Mataji wasn't talking very much. I remember when she gave our daughter Shridevi her name, she didn't talk much at all in that on that occasion, and then she was receding into herself. She wanted us to grow, wasn't it? So it's so
yeah,
curious that at that
yeah.
point she'd wink at
She
you.
winked. She winked. And the funny thing was that, as I said, the emotion of it all was very, very strong for me, because you just want to experience, be with Shrimataji, and really have those moments. But at the same time, there's all this, like, people jostling and getting in the way of that. And then they're also obviously people who want their darshan too. So fine, that's fine. I respect that. But the atmosphere was just chaotic. And so I remember I was there. I videoed an interview with Shrimataji, and I was pulling the equipment down. This was at the same tour, by the way. I was pulling the equipment down, and I hadn't said a word to Shrimanji. But you know how those things where she's sitting there, there's hundreds of people all around her, and then all of a sudden, everyone's told to go, and then it's just Shrimanji sitting there, just all alone, and I'm still packing equipment away. Anyway, I looked to Shrimanji. I just fixed one small thing. I looked at Shrimanji. She waved me over. And so I just went to her feet. I just namaskared, and I was just sitting, like, kneeling at her feet. And she just said, "You love me very much." I said, "Yes, Shrimanji, I do." And then she said, "Okay, you should maybe finish packing up." So
Oh, wow.
I went and I finished packing up. But it was just a moment. It was almost like a thing that it's okay. And
Yeah.
then what happened, like, this was also really bizarre, and I think it sort of shows that we yogis we're playing a role that's different perhaps to what we think. So, like, during that whole chaotic experience, um which I won't go into, but it was very heavy politically, with all these people around, very heavy. And we were, as I said, quite heartbroken by all the stuff that was going on. Anyway, I had a dream of Shrimanji at that night, and she said, there was so much pain in the Middle East, because this was Dubai. There's so much pain in the Middle East. I couldn't absorb it. So I had to put it on to someone, and I put it on you people like me and Sushma. She said,
Mhm.
that's why I've had to put you through this, what's going on. And that was so interesting, because you realize, wow, we're basically extensions of her being, and
Yes.
that she was utilizing us in a way that was really unexpected. And like, it really made me realize that the role we're playing in all of this, as souls who are connected to the divine and in that silent state, that we're fulfilling a role that's perhaps quite different to what we imagine as well.
Yeah, yes.
Mm,
I mean,
mm,
we've got very limited understanding being human beings. We do
mm,
touch on that consciousness and the experiences that Shrimataji bestows upon us, but really the words are not quite adequate enough to describe it, isn't it? So this is 2007 in Dubai, and then after
mm,
that, where
mm,
Shrimataji
mm,
said, "You love me very much," then when she was leaving and you were still in that state of almost sorrow and
mm,
sadness, that she winked at you. Is
mm.
that it?
Yeah, yeah. It was so sweet. And but it really reminded me that she's like the puppeteer, you know, like everything's just a puppet show, and that
Having the
she's
string,
the
thankfully.
grand puppeteer, you know. And so it was just a lesson, I guess, you know. I mean, we had another experience like that in terms of lessons and how, you know, there was one time when um, when I came up as a junior photojournalist, one of my best mates was became he was a junior reporter. We were quite chummy, and he went off to become the press secretary for in the premier's office. And so Shri Mataji was coming with CCP. CCP had written that book, the Lal Bahadur Shastri book, and they were coming to Australia. Don't ask me the year, I can't remember, but it was at the launch of the book. So anyway, we wanted to do a launch for the, you know, get some dignitaries there and have a hall and do everything. And you know, we because I knew this guy and he was press secretary for the premier at that time, I thought, well,
Yeah.
this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to hit him up, and we'll get oh no, it was the opposition leader, because we all felt that he was like one of these guys who would, you know, he was worldly, he knew about world affairs, he'd kind of married an Asian lady, he was married into a different culture, and he seemed to have this kind of, you know, veneer about him that was like, oh, you know, he'll be good for this. So
Right.
I approached the guy and said, hey, you know, I kind of thought, how do I pitch this? Because there was still a lot of the cultish stuff going on in those days. You know, still the association, you know, that a lot of people had with anything Indian in those days. Like just, it was just blanket across everything. If so, when I approached him, I said, oh, look, you know, I've got a family, very dear family friend. I thought there's no other way to pitch this. I have to make it friends. So
Yeah.
uh, and she's coming, and her husband's a very, very elite diplomat, and he's written this book. And you know, I gave him the top line story of it, and so he was like, wow, that sounds really interesting, and you know, I reckon we'd love to do that, like no problem at all. So I thought, oh, done, you know, done. So I spoke to the leader at that time, and I was young, I was very young, you know, and I, even though I was working at that level, like, you know, mostly journalism is like the fluffiest cappuccino in Bondi. It's not
Yes.
really proper news or anything most of the time, you know. So
Yeah, far from hoi polloi, but how old were
yeah,
you?
yeah. So must be late 20s. Must be late 20s. So
Okay.
um, so anyway, I told the leader, oh, look, I've organized this. And he's gone, well, let me talk to them. And I was like, oh, well, I've kind of told them a little bit of a, you know, a fib. It's not a fib really, but I've packaged it in a way which is more about, it's more of a personal favor. So, you know, like, just leave it to me. He said, no, 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 I must talk to them. I must talk to them. I was like, no, 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 you have to just follow me on this. Like, I'm sorry, but you know, I can't put you in touch with them at the moment. Just let me handle it. No, 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 no. I want to talk to them. Anyway, I said, no, I'm not doing that. Like, because I sort of knew the nature of the relationship and all that. And so anyway, this leader, he rang the premier's office, sorry, the opposition leader's office, and and he's like, yes, I'm from, you know, Life Eternal Trust and blah, 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 and Shri Mataji and, you know, Sahaja Yoga and all this sort of stuff. And he just completely botched it. And I got a call from my mate who was like, what's going on? What is this? And I'm going, no, no, no. It's like, it's a perfectly, you know, it's just a normal, we're just a normal organization of people. There's nothing, there's no, it's not, it's this, it's that. No, 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 nothing like, and I'm trying to kind of put out this fire that's just begun. And he's like, look, I've put myself out front for you. I look bad. So he says, don't ever talk to me again. That's it, finished like that. So he ended my relationship. We were good friends, you know, because his understanding of things, you know, was quite limited. There was obviously not much internet going around in those days or anything like
Yeah.
that. So anyway, I thought, well, you know, I'm kind of stuck, you know. And anyway, that leader got in front of the collective and was telling him, oh, Mark was lying. What he said, he never had it organized. It was a lie. And I thought, well, here I am. I'm completely skewered now because I've lost my professional friendship on one side, and I've got half the yogis thinking I'm kind of like crackers on the other side. So I thought, well, what am I going to do? You know? So anyway, I'm so upset. I just kind of I just, that's it. I went to bed that night and I thought, that's it. I don't know. I don't know what to do. There's no, and Shri Mataji was coming, by the way. This was only maybe 10 days out of Shri Mataji coming, right? So anyway, I get a call at 6 a.m., which never happens. Get a call at 6 a.m. It's my boss. And he's like, oh, the guys have one of the guys who was going to go traveling with the premier has fallen ill. Would you be able to go? They're going to the drought regions. They've got a private plane. Would you be able to go? Have you got your gear? I said, yeah, I'm ready to go. So he said, quickly, just get a go, run, you know? So I drove out to the airport with my equipment and everything. I was the last guy there. Plane's on the runway, you know, I jump in and there's only one seat and it's directly opposite the premier, the deputy premier, who was the head of the country party, national party. So I sit down opposite him, and you know, he's just fidgeting around, kind of looking out the window. There was no, you know, there were no other distractions in those days. So if you didn't have a book, you know, or if you didn't want to play Snake on your Nokia phone, you know, there was nothing else to do, right? So so he's just looking out the window, he's fidgeting around, and I had Gandhi's autobiography. So I thought I'll just, and there's a bit of protocol. So you're not really supposed to engage them unless they engage you, you know. And I was young, and I certainly didn't want to break that protocol, but I was sitting right opposite him. So anyway, I got my book and he's fidgeting around and he sort of looks at the book and he says, what's this book about then? You know, tell me about this book. Because he just wanted to have a chat, you know. So I'm like, well, I said, look, don't take it from me. There's a lady coming out next week. And he's like, done. So he says, I'll get you Parliament House. And then I explained what it was. I'll get you Parliament House. We'll organize all the media for you. We'll just do everything. All you've got to do is just show up, and done. So anyway, and I was like, oh my God, that was just like a miracle, right? So anyway, then we were talking, and it turns out he lived I was living in an ashram in Coogee in those days. And he used to live down the road, and we had this house dog at the ashram, and he had a dog, identical dog, right? So he's talking about his dog, I'm talking about my dog, we're talking about Coogee, like, and we're just having a laugh. And he was such a sweet, sweet man. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm having this really amazing, very friendly, very jovial kind of conversation with basically one of the most important political figures in Australia. So anyway, it was just nice, you know. Anyway, we show up, we do, this is hilarious. So it's all booked and done. Then Shri Mataji comes the following week, and then CCP is like, well, we should go and do this. Mark, you need to accompany me because obviously you've organized it and so on. And the leader guy was kind of there. And anyway, we get to Parliament House, and we go up to introduce CCP to the Deputy Premier. And we come up to the floor. My heart's kind of beating out of my chest at this point because I was quite, you know, these very big players, you could say, are there. I'm just a guy, you know. So I see right down the end of the corridor, the Deputy Premier standing in his doorway. And he's bouncing a tennis ball, and this is Australia, right? He's bouncing a tennis ball up and down.
You could never ever imagine that.
And he shouts straight down the corridor. He says, Mark Williams, the mayor of Coogee, come here, big fella. And I kid you not, he lifts me off the ground in a bear hug. I'm not kidding, right? And so I'm like, oh, you know, Mr. this is CP Shrivastava. And so we went into the office and sat down, and the two of them met, and then the CP was quite happy, like everything was quite well done. And we went down, and then they gave the talk. Everything was great, no problem at all. And Shri Mataji was sitting there, and she was looking at me from the stage, from the side of the stage. And then I could, when you can feel someone watching you, especially Shri Mataji. And I looked at Shri Mataji, and Shri Mataji would look away like this. It happened 2-3 times. And then afterwards, I got to meet Shri Mataji. And I said, Shri Mataji, what happened? Like, why was it so hard to organize? Everything was like, my whole reputation was on the line. It was heavy. It was really hard. Like, that was hard, And Shri Mataji said, no, I had to increase your faith. That was just about faith. I had to increase your faith.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, yeah, so that was like, oh. So anyway, the story continues, right? So then we end up going to this restaurant, and because Shri Mataji was coming, I thought I'll be a good yogi. I'll go on liver diet. So I was on a liver diet, and which I'd never really seriously done before, and I hadn't taken it seriously. But I thought, no, Shri Mataji's coming. I'm going to be serious, right? So I'm on a serious liver diet. So we go to this Italian restaurant on the waterfront. It's beautiful, and everyone orders, and Shri Mataji orders lasagna. So, but I just ordered some penne or whatever, basic vegetarian thing because of the liver. Shri Mataji orders lasagna. And all the yogis like, oh, lasagna. They all order lasagna, right? Everyone orders it because Shri Mataji's ordered lasagna. And that's the way it's going away. Shri Mataji says, oh, excuse me, is it beef? And they said, yes, ma'am, it's beef. And she says, no, I'll change my order because my teeth are hurting, so I don't want to have the beef. I'll have. She ordered something else. And she said, but you people keep your order. And everyone's like, oh my God, we're about to eat beef and Shri Mataji in front of Shri Mataji. Like, what are we doing? Like everyone was kind of feeling like this, right?
Yes.
So again, another test, right? Another test
Yeah,
of,
okay.
hey, they're just conventions. Like, all of the rules are just conventions that, you adhere to as closely as you can, but you don't become fanatical about it, which is the whole theme of this,
Yeah.
of what was going on, right? So anyway, during the lunch, Shri Mataji's talking, she's saying some wild things, as she always did. Like, oh, she says, the Pope's got AIDS. This was John Paul II, I think it was. The Pope's got AIDS. And so CP is like, how do you know? And she says, I know. Like this, she says, I know. And we're all just like, oh my God, the Pope's got it. So it was one of these like conversations, which was really amazing. Anyway, finished the food and then dessert. So I said to the guy next to me, I said, I'm on liver diet. What should I do? And Shri Mataji heard, and she said, waiter, 2 ice creams for him, 2. So he brings 2 bowls of ice cream out, not 1, but 2. And then I finished those 2. And then Shri Mataji hands me her bowl of ice cream, which and she said, you have to have it because it's prasad.
What prasad? How lucky. Amazing.
So I'm eating this third bowl of ice cream. Anyway, we're done with the lunch, and then I looked at my phone and I was like, oh, sorry. I looked at my watch, I think, because it wasn't phone days back then. I looked at my watch, it's 4:00 in the afternoon. I realized, oh my God, I'm going to get absolutely murdered. I've got to get back to the office. Like I've been gone all day, and they gave me an opening of a couple of hours to go and do this. So I jumped in a cab, went screaming back to the office, and I thought, oh, what am I going to say? Like, I'm completely history. What am I going to do? I show up at the office. It's completely empty. This is a newspaper at 4:00 in the afternoon. I walk in the front door.
Impossible.
There's
And that's
not
Australian. Oh my.
there's not a soul there. And I walked up to the security guard. I said, what's going on? And I said, oh, the computer system's crashed about 90 minutes ago. They can't fix it. So there's no paper tomorrow. Everyone's gone home.
Amazing. Amazing.
Amazing, right? So I'm just like, oh my God, like she turned the newspaper off for the day, So then,
Oh,
so then
again and again there.
yeah. So I went upstairs and I went to the washroom and I was just washing my face. I looked at myself. I didn't recognize myself because I looked completely different. Like she had cleared me out through the whole lunch. And I realized like that everything was just just a place. She's cleansing, she's clearing us out, she's kind of guiding you and teaching you all at the same time in all these like really subtle ways. And every word, what I realized was that everything she said had a kind of not a double meaning, but you had to look for them, sometimes look for the meaning in things, you know.
Yes.
Like, yeah, I remember a slight to hammer that point home. I remember being with her one time, and a lady came in front of Shri Mataji, and she said, "Oh," and her husband was right next to her. "Oh, oh, where's your husband? Are you married?" And she's like, "Yes, this is my husband here." And then, but it turned out that they were having lots and lots of marital problems, and that he was seeing another woman and stuff like this. But she obviously picked up on it, and that was like the divine
Mm.
hints, you know, like that something wasn't right there, you know, because she would recognize, you know. So, yeah, so I had that like crazy experience there with the launch.
Would
Yeah.
you do you think this would be on Amrita, this recording of this whole um
Um, I
in
don't know if they recorded it, but it was in the papers. There was
do you
a
have
article.
clippings of it?
No, I don't have it, but I might be there might be an archive of it somewhere. Like you might I don't know if that paper's that old are archived online or anything like that, but they ran it. The Australian ran it as a story the following day,
Amazing.
and
It would be amazing if we could have a well, an
yeah,
email sort of a print of it, and we could include it with your interview. This would be
yeah.
so so
I'll,
nice.
I'll see if I can. I'll see if I'll see if I can find it, and we'll see what we can do. But yeah, crazy times, you know.
Yeah, drama on so many levels, isn't it?
Mm. Yes. But I think that she just used to create that whirlwind of stuff,
Yeah.
and everyone would just get tested, you know, like the whole time. And you know, there was another time we were in Cabela for a Ganesh Puja,
Please tell the
2000,
year. Sorry.
I think 2000 or it was 1999 or 2000, something like this.
Uh-huh.
And this was a huge test for me because again, Australian collective, lots of chaos, lots of like, you know, there was a leader there at that time who was really hard work, and we just got like swept up in all of the again chaos that was going on. And anyway, I got a chance to see Shri Mataji, and I think this was the story behind it's quite weird, because there's always high emotions in these things, you know. So anyway, what had happened was Shri Mataji came to the puja, and we did the puja, and then afterwards she had gifts for the Australians. She put them all out on the you know, or the leaders or whatever put them out, and I went and tie. I grabbed a tie, and then she said, "Oh, come and see me tomorrow after the weddings." So I thought, "Oh, okay, you know, that this should be good." And because there was such chaos, I
Yeah.
thought, "Oh, that's it. That's it. I'm going to tell Shri Mataji," like, you know, in my mind, because I was really reacting to a lot of stuff that was going on, you know. And anyway, the next day, weddings happened, and then after the weddings, I jumped in the van, and the guy's like, "You shouldn't be in the van. What are you doing in the van?" I'm going, "Well, you just shush and drive," you know, like, so I was not having it from anyone. And, you know, I was feeling really like ready for a fight, you know, with anyone who was ready to take me on, you know, because the tensions in the collective had really blown up at that point, you know, because of the way everyone was kind of
Mm.
managing. And Shri wasn't happy. She was telling Australians, "Go and foot soak. You're all right-sided." Like she was really not that impressed with us in those days. Anyway, got up to the castle, sort of standing there out the front, and the car comes, and some of the yogis look at me like, "What's he doing here? You know, who's he think he is to come up here and everything?" And I was feeling like really like, "Argh," like this. Anyway, Shri gets out of the car, and she's sort of like bowing to everybody or namaskaring to everybody like this. And then
Yeah.
she went sort of straight past me and didn't, and I was like, "Oh," you know, like, so something in me was like, "Oh, okay." Because I was already feeling quite intense about all the stuff that was going on. So I immediately felt like, "Oh, okay. Anyway, no problem." Try to brush it off. Palanquin up to the top of the steps. She gets out, and she's just going in, and she looks at me and goes, "What are you doing here?" And I just went white. I just thought maybe I misheard everything. Like maybe, maybe I shouldn't be here. Maybe these people are right, you know? And I didn't know what to say. I was just the stammering for the words. And then Shamaji said, "Oh, that's right. I called you, didn't I?" I said, "Yeah, yes, Shamaji." It's like, "Oh, thank God," you know. So then all of these like sort of, difficult people were standing there,
Saving grace.
and then Shamaji gives me her handbag, and
Wow.
she puts her arm in my arm, so we could walk across. So I'm walking with Shrimanaji's hand on my arm like this, with Shrimanaji's handbag, walking across, and in my mind I'm like, wow, oh my God, I'm with Shrimanaji and she's touching me on the arm. This is
Oh,
fantastic.
wow.
This is really relishing the moment. And then she stopped and turned to bid farewell to everybody, just like this. And as she did that, just the look on their faces were like, what's going on? Like, who is this guy and everything? And I was just like, yes, I'm with Shrimanaji like this. So anyway, we went into the room and then sat down. And then she said, 60% of these people are not Sahaja Yogis. She said, your relationship is with me, not with them. And Sahaja Yoga is only one of my aspects. So she said, don't like get affected by these things. And I said, Shrimanaji, I think I've got ego. Because this was because I was seeing my own reaction at that point. And I was like, yeah. She said, no. And I said, no, Shrimanaji, I think I've got ego. And she said, do you think you've got ego, or do you know you've got ego? And I know I've got ego. And she said, very good. She said, I didn't want to say it. It's good that you saw it for yourself. But she said, don't worry. All those Australians have got ego down there.
That's probably one of the problems were there then, isn't it?
But it was just the whole thing. Again, the whole thing was just a big play. And then so we'd bought this apartment, and so I had the title deed, and it was a big deal. Anyone who buys a place knows it's a big deal. So I thought, I'm going to get Shrimanaji if I get a chance, she'll bless somehow the title deed or something. So I had it. I put it on
The
the front.
apartment in Cabela.
Oh no! I bought just an apartment in Sydney,
Yeah,
back in the
okay.
day.
And you were in Cabela in the castle.
We were in Cabela seeing Shrimanaji. So I put it on the floor next to me, and I thought, I'm going to try and get that into the conversation at some point. I just put it there. I promptly forgot about it. Anyway, at that point, Shrimanaji went into meditation, and she was just sitting normally. And then I thought, well, I'm going to meditate. I'm with Shrimanaji. She's meditating, so I'm going to meditate. So I was just sitting there at her feet, and I was looking up at her. And then she went into the blessing pose like this. And she sat there for 5-6 minutes like that, just in silence. And then she brought her hands back down again. And I was just meditating in front of her. I didn't know, do I close my eyes? Do I keep my eyes open? I didn't know what to do. So I was just staring at her feet, like I had my head down looking at her feet. And every now and again, I would just look up to see, what Shrimanaji was doing. So I was just meditating at Shrimanaji's feet. She's meditating. And then I see her looking me up and down like this. And she's just like this. And then after like 2-3 minutes more, she said, you'll be all right. And I got this very strange feeling that she was fixing something in my future. I just felt it. Like, I don't know if it's correct or not, but I felt intuitively that she had somehow fixed something within me in my future. I can't explain how that is, and then she looked at the title and she said, oh, what's that? And I said, oh, Shrimanaji's title deed. I bought an apartment. I was super happy. And then she said, sell it. I just bought it. She said, sell it. You don't need the headache. And I was like, oh, okay. And she said, then she named Kingsgrove Ashram. We had this ashram called Kingsgrove. She named it by name. She just said, oh, Kingsgrove Ashram was a blessing for you. You should stay there. So we're like, oh, okay, she's named the ashram by name. All right, okay, we'll stay. No problem at all. So I sold the apartment, broke even. As I'm the only person that's invested in Australian property and just broken even. But that's okay. That's okay. And then we kept the ashram, the ashram going. But yeah, it was just one of those and then as I said before, I went to kind of say to Shri Mataji about how all the chaotic things were going on. These people were all misbehaving and blah blah blah, but it was all gone. And then she said, "So is there anything else?" And I said, "Oh, Shri Mataji, just want to be with you forever. That's all. Like I don't want anything else in this life, but just to be with you forever, all eternity, just to be with you." And then she put her hands up in blessing and she said, "I bless you for that." And then I just sort of namaskared to her. And then by that time, Sandeep, I think it was, had come in and said, "Okay, time to move on." So I just namaskared to Shri Mataji and left at that point. But it was such a beautiful moment,
Very, very special.
Yeah.
Very special to have those fortune of spending a one-to-one time with the Adishakti herself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Such years of lifetimes.
Well, I had another one because we traveled to Asia with Shri Mataji as well on one of the tours. Oh God, I can't remember the year also, but Alex and a few other people were there, and we were with Shri Mataji, and they told me that she was going shopping one day. So I was staying in the ashram, or what was their collective house in Happy Valley or wherever it was. And then I just made my way down to the hotel, and I came up, but there was no one there. So I thought, oh, fantastic, I'll just sit and meditate. Got the place to myself. So I was just sitting quietly meditating. And then, as I said, no one is there. I just walked in, doors were open and all that. And then I hear Mark, and it was Shri Mataji's voice. I was like,
Oh.
yes, yes, Shri Mataji, yes. She said, come in, come in. And I went, and Shri Mataji was in her bedroom, the kind of antechamber or something, I guess you'd call it.
Mhm.
And she was just reading the paper. She said, come sit down. She said, she said, I'll teach you how to meditate.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I thought,
What did
oh,
she
I
tell
need
you?
this.
Please
I
tell us
need.
for everybody listening.
So she's like, I need this. So anyway, she was saying, have you heard of noise canceling head? This is 90s, still 90s. Like, I can't remember the year, but it was still, we weren't that tech in those days. She said, have you heard of noise canceling headphones? I said, yes, Shri Mataji. She said, well, that's kind of how meditation works. That what happens is that the sound is waves in the outside. You have the cups on your ears, and there's a little microphone that picks up that sound and flips the polarity of it, or where they cancel out. So what happens is that in the cup in the ear, the sound is actively banging, the waves are banging into each other and canceling out. So she said, that's noise canceling headphones. She said, that's how your attention works. So she said, your thoughts rise and fall as a wave. Your attention is the equal opposite wave of that. So they both have the same energy, I guess you could say energy. So when they hit each other, they cancel. So she said, all you do is you just watch your thoughts. You turn your attention back on your thoughts, and they immediately just cancel out. And you can be silent just by doing that. All you've got to do is watch your thoughts. They'll automatically cancel. In the act of doing it it's almost a physiological, event.
It's nullifying, isn't it? It's like
Yeah.
plus minus is zero, minus one plus one is zero. And
Yeah.
therefore,
Yeah.
the frequency of the attention matching the frequency of the thought, and then it's null and void, isn't it? And then you're just in that witness state.
Yeah, exactly. So she was saying that you just do that, just turn your attention back on your thoughts that automatically dissolve. And she said the beauty of it is that you can meditate when you're driving the car, when you're at work, when you're washing the dishes, like whatever you're doing, you can just turn your attention, you can be thoughtless. And she said, the aim is to be as thoughtless as you can, as long as you can, as much as you can. So that's what you need to do. So she said, do it now. But I was so blissed out that said, oh, Shri Mataji, I'm not sure it's a good test because I'm with you, like I'm so overwhelmed, like with
The
what's going
source of all.
with being with you. So anyway, then she said, okay, do it when you get home at the ashram. Go to the ashram and then come back and tell me tomorrow how it is. So I went on the tram on the way home and I tested it. And I don't know Hong Kong. And Hong Kong's like one of those places where where do I get off? What do I do? How do I, I was still trying to negotiate. But I thought, no, I'm going to do this. And I turned my attention, I was just hanging onto the handle and I just, standing up in the tram. And I just turned my attention back on my thoughts and they just went silent. And I thought, oh, that's it. So I kept doing it. And you'd have like 4 or 5 seconds and then your attention would, and then you have to bring it back. And then bring it back like this. But I did it and it worked, And so then the next day when I saw Shri Mataji, I said, oh, I did it. It works. It's fantastic. And she said, no, you just tell everybody because that's the trick. That's what you need to do. So anyway, that's what she was saying about how to meditate, right? Anyway, as I was researching later on, I was reading Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, and depending on the translation you get, because the translations are very all over the place.
Yeah.
On page 1, he describes that as your experience to be merged with the divine consciousness. He explains that exact experience on page 1 of the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. But you got to get the right translation, because I've looked at many translations and there were only 1 or 2 that kind of got it, and it's a little bit poetic. You still have to kind of, if you know what it is, you go, yeah, that's that thing, So
yeah. You sort of
So,
understand it with how Shri Mataji has explained it, isn't it? And the
yeah.
variations, amazing. That's immense. That is immense, Mark.
Yeah, so simple. So I was meditating with Shri Mataji, as you do, like whatever, and so it was such an amazing experience. And then we went off to Taipei, and I was tagging along, and she was staying in the grand, no, what was it called? It was right in the presidential suite at the very top floor of this very huge hotel in Taipei. And we were up there watching TV with Shri Mataji. And there was myself and a Malaysian yogi and a bunch of very new Hong Kong yogis, because Hong Kong was still breaking in those days. So, no, Taiwanese yogis. Very fresh, very new. Didn't know much, a lot of bhakti. Very happy to be with Shri Mataji. And we were just sitting at Shri Mataji's feet watching CNN or something like that. And then Shri Mataji says, oh, Mark, can you go and get me a glass of water? I'm like, okay. So I get up and I'm walking across the suite and I'm looking at the floor and I see the carpet going like this. The carpet starts to go like this. And I'm looking, going, what's going on? And I look, and the books are coming off the bookshelf and the chandelier is shaking like this. And it was an earthquake. We're in an earthquake. So the whole place is shaking and you feel this like thunderous kind of roar kind of underneath everything. And so I'm like, oh my God. And I'm in an earthquake with the Adishakti, like in my mind, I was like, oh my God, this is like, nothing is going to happen. Nothing. I'm perfectly protected. I'm right with the Adishakti like this. And that the yogis, who are all quite new, as I said, were like, earthquake, oh my God, ah. And they didn't speak any English or anything like that. They got up and they ran out, and I'm just standing there, like looking at Shri Mataji, just like, wow, it was just me and Shri Mataji, I'm looking at Shri Mataji like, wow, I'm in an earthquake with Shri Mataji. Anyway, it stopped. And Shri Mataji was looking very concerned and very serious. So I went back I had the glass of water, I went back to Shri Mataji, and the yogis had started to come back in, and they were feeling a bit sheepish because they realized they'd left Shri Mataji there. So they were pulling their ears as they came in, and we were just we went and sat at Shri Mataji's feet again, and then she was just looking very seriously sort of around, and next thing you know, it started again, like the same thing, but even more intense. And then one yogi says, Shri Mataji, what do we do? And Shri Mataji grabs the arms of the chair and she says, let's get out of here. At which point all of the yogis jump up and they run out, they run out and they leave Shri Mataji a second time.
What a test,
So we were there. So she's even playing with them, right? So then it all subsided, and they came back in again, and then we were sitting and we said, Shri Mataji, well, what's going on? And she said, no, it's the dead ancestors of all those dead spirits, because they do a lot of ancestor worship in those cultures. So the ancestors sometimes get a bit stuck in between worlds. They don't pass on into any new world. They're kind of stuck in some sort of void, and they were trying to create a situation where the Adishakti would bless them with their moksha.
Yes.
And that's what she was saying. She said, but it doesn't work like that. They have to attain it. It's not like they have to come back and they have to get it in the proper way. That's not the right way to do
When
things.
you say come back, take another human form, and then
then they'll get their realization, and in the proper way, how we got ours. So
process, gosh.
yeah, but interesting, huh? Like
Very fascinating.
Yeah, all because of the ancestor worship. Yeah.
Yeah, and how lucky that Shri Mataji engineered it. They obviously deserved that blessing from Shri Mataji.
Yeah. Well, and the whole thing was a play, with the yogis and everything about the recognition, and then just like it was just a bizarre experience. Even now, like recalling it, it just doesn't even feel real. But we were there with Shri Mataji and the earthquake
Like
happened.
straight out of a movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
yeah.
Oh, so I was going to move on to all this because there was something that happened to me in Dubai. Like, speaking of these bizarre experiences and miracle experiences and so on, the whole way through all of this, I guess, you always live, like most yogis tend to live very, we're just normal middle class people, and we've got like often quite a lot of drama in life, with different things and all that. But, we get most of our dramas resolved in some way, but still, she keeps you in a little bit of slight little state of unevenness just to keep you focused, like, because if everything was too easy, I think you would drift off, So
Absolutely.
anyway, I have an experience of this in Dubai, where when I first went to Dubai, I was working for a newspaper group over there as a publisher. And
Did Shri Mataji ask you to go to Dubai? How did you go?
No. Well, I was working as a creative director in Australia at that point, and then I had a dream of Shri Mataji, and she said, "Oh, I don't want you to do that," And I thought, oh, well, how do I get out of this? Because so I was just applying for a job. I randomly applied for a job in Dubai, and they said, oh, come over, and so I got this job in Dubai, and so I ended up over there. And it was all on a dream that Shri Mataji wanted me to change what I was doing, which was great. Great that I had that divine experience to try and guide me, and this worked out. So I thought, oh, it's all a blessing, So I show up. It's the worst work environment I've ever come across. The politics, the nastiness, like just the next level, and it's like you've got all of the politics of all these different subcultural groups. You've got, Arabic politics, Indian politics, Pakistani politics. Like it's layer upon layer upon layer of just all of the worst aspects of human nature coming out in one work environment, And I was kind of thrown into this, and I just wasn't ready. Like, I was just too naive, too innocent, too, like, I didn't understand anything. And I think I went in with quite a bit of swagger as well, because, I'd worked for very prestigious newspaper groups. I thought, I went in with quite a lot of front.
Mm.
And I got that knocked out of me pretty quickly. And I realized within maybe 3 months, I realized that's it. I'm not going to survive here. I'm either we had a couple of dramas, and I realized I'm either going to leave like very soon, as in the next working day, or or I'm going to get fired. Like, one or two things is going to happen, but something's going to happen. And I'd only been there 3 months, and in Dubai, what happens is they take your passport. When those days they took your passport because they want to keep an eye on you. Basically, they don't want you absconding. So they take your passport. Then they gave me an advance, so it was quite a big one, because I got the kids off to India school with that, and then we relocated, and then they paid for an apartment, like rental, for a year. They paid for a car loan. They did, like, it was a lot of money. I think in range of around 60,000-70,000 Australian dollars, I think it was, if I remember.
Wow,
And
good.
this was 2005. So anyway, I remember this year. So so anyway, um, we were having I knew the gig was up. I knew that, right. And I didn't know anyone in Dubai, and I was just feeling like, what am I going to do? But I didn't even, it was just a heavy feeling of impending doom. So anyway, there was a yogi having a Lakshmi puja at her house, and so she invited me and Sushma over, and we were there, and 20 yogis were there, and I was just talking to Shri Mataji, just in my attention, and I was like, Shri Mataji, like, here I am, like, I only came to Dubai because the dream, and I don't know, like, I don't know what to do, and this is gonna all rain down on me tomorrow at the office. So, I don't know what to do, and I'm just feeling really bad about everything, etc. Please, you have to help. And then the yogini sees that I'm obviously looking quite unhappy. So she says, come and put some flowers in front of Shri Mataji. So I grabbed the flower, and as I was putting the flower in front of Shri Mataji, I swear, Shri Mataji spoke to me from the photograph, and she said, you've got yourself in a real mess, haven't you? And I was like, yes, Shri Mataji. And she said, don't worry, I'll get you out of it.
Wow.
Anyway, on the car on the way home, I was saying to Sushma, oh, look, I don't know. I feel maybe I've got some like left side problem, or maybe because I was feeling quite overwhelmed by the problem. And she was like, no. And I told her what happened. She said, when was this? And I said, no, when I was putting the flower down. She said, no, 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 don't worry. She said, because I was meditating, and I felt this sudden gush of vibrations, and I was wondering what it was. So I opened my eyes, and you were putting the flower in front of Shri Mataji. So she said, don't worry. I think whatever's happening is, it's not, you're not going crazy, because I thought maybe I'm going crazy.
It's
So
so,
anyway,
so important. Yeah, no, carry on.
so anyway, I went to work the following day, and I got fired, as I expected. I knew it was going to happen. And it was either me, it was the first one to open their mouth. It was, oh, I resign, or you're fired. It was one or the other, right? So, but it was happening. So anyway, I was the second one to open my mouth. So anyway, they said, you have a non-compete clause in your contract, so you can't work for anyone else. A, and we will enforce it. B, right? C, we want our money. It has to be in 30 days. D, we have your passport. You're not going anywhere until we get our money. And I was like, oh, okay. And we're going to file you for abscondment if you don't appear with something in the next 30, 40 days. Like, you've got till the end of whatever that period was.
What a dread, gosh.
So, oh, they were nasty. Oh, yeah. You have no idea how, like, that was next level nasty. So anyway, I thought, well, what do I do? I'm completely snookered. Even if I got a job tomorrow, it's going to be with a competitor for sure, and even if I got it who gets a job in 30 days? It takes months of faffing around. So anyway, was sitting on the edge of the bed feeling quite despondent. And then I realized I knew one guy in Dubai. I knew one guy, like out, you know, I knew yogis, of course, and some other people, but people who could help me in my professional life. I knew one guy. He was a graphic designer, and he was fired from the same place, but he was drunk on the job, so very different. So he got fired for that. So he's not really the first person I would have spoken to, if I'm being honest. You know? So anyway, I ring him up and I said, look, I've got myself in a bit of a dilemma. And I explained, and he's like, oh, look, this is Dubai. This is what happens. He said, look, I talked to this guy, and he gives me a phone number of an English editor for another newspaper. I ring him. He's like, oh, look, I can't help you. He says, but ring this guy. He gives me another number of another guy. This guy goes, all right, don't talk to me. I can't really help you. Talk to this guy. And this is all in the space of 15 minutes of phone calls, right?
Wow.
And I ring a guy. He's an Emirati man, local Arab there. And I said, oh, hi, it's, you know, my name's Mark and rah, rah, rah. And, you know, I'm actually, I'm in publishing and so on. I'm here in Dubai. And he's like, oh, okay. He says, why don't you come and see me? Come and see me now. How quickly can you get here? He says, I've got a busy schedule, but I've got an opening. I can get you in. Why don't you come now? I was like, oh, okay. Like, you know, so like, oh, look, is it okay if I bring my wife? Imagine I took my wife to a job interview because I was feeling so overwhelmed by things, and I thought I needed the vibrational support. He's
Wow,
like,
yeah.
sure. He's like, sure, whatever. Bring your wife. It's fine, you know. So anyway, I showed up, and his office was directly next door. I kid you not, directly next door to my old office, because they were in a precinct, you know, like an industrial park, you know.
Yeah.
So they had two newspaper offices with the printing presses behind. So my boss's office, I could see as I was walking into the Abdul Latif's building. This is the Arab guy I was dealing with. I could look up and I could see my old boss in the window.
Ex-editor.
In
Yeah.
the window, right? And oh man, my heart was beating because they're all like, you can't work for a competitor, and you know, and it was just a surreal situation. So I walk in with Sushma, go up and see him, and he puts a newspaper in front of me, and he says, okay, have a look. And I tell him, you know, maybe do this, try this, do the other, da da da. It was he says, all right. He says, okay, I'll give you a job. You start on Sunday. And I was like, oh, thank you. That's fantastic. I said, but look, I've just got to tell you, I've got some problems. And I just said, look, they've got, first of all, I've got a non-compete clause. Secondly, da 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 da. Anyway, he says, do you know who owns this newspaper? I said, no, I have no idea. He says, it's His Highness, Sheikh Mohammed. It's his family newspaper. He says, you're not going to have any problem with non-compete clause. They're not going to follow you, you know, because it's Sheikh Mohammed, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's great. I said, but I also owe them a ton of money as well. And he says, how much? So I pulled out the thing, oh yeah, this much. And he wrote me a personal check. He wrote me a personal check on the spot for that money. I said, will that cover it? I said, yeah. Who does that? You know, but this is what the guy did, right? Then,
Wow.
and then I said, look, they've got my passport. He's like, all right, just wait. He gets on the phone, says something in Arabic. He knows they're next door. He knows the deal. So he had someone get in touch with them, and he had one of our office, the office boys, go and get my passport. And he comes back with this little guy comes back with my passport and hands me my passport all in one go, right? So I take my passport, and of course I mean, I took the job, and everything was fantastic, and you know, it was great. And we relaunched the newspaper for Sheikh Mohammed, and then I ended up going up to the palace and meeting Sheikh Mohammed as well, like, because he just wanted to shake my hand, which was really surreal. So what happened was they said, His Highness wants to see you. I'm like, oh my God, okay, I don't know what I've done, but we just launched this paper, right? So anyway, I've got in this car. We've driven up to the palace, and I'm just sitting there in this majlis, you know, with all these peacocks and things around, beautiful setup. I'm just sitting there, and then Sheikh Mohammed just comes out with a whole coterie of people, and then he extends his hand, and I shake his hand, and then he just turns around and walks away. And then the guy just says, okay, back to the office now.
I probably would have talked to you if you had taken Sushma Didi along.
So that was it. That was it. But then I had a dream of that was like 8 months later or 9 months later when we'd actually done the job. But I had a dream of Shri Mataji that night, and she's got me by the hand, and we're in a restaurant, and she's swinging me around, and I'm knocking over all the tables and chairs, and she's just laughing. And then she kind of pulls me up this huge kind of step, and she puts me at the top of it, and she says, "Don't mess it up." In the dream, in the dream.
You're on the
So
naughty step.
so yeah, so that was my like, like bona fide, like life-saving experience
Amazing,
in
amazing.
Dubai. Yeah, yeah. So crazy times, and all just like, I don't know, I've
And
got
this
a
is
lot of,
all in 2005.
yeah, that was 2005. Yeah.
Wow.
And then there was one I forgot to mention, if I rewind a little bit, which
Yeah.
was what was the year?
There
It
were
was,
two that, if I may request, please, because I read it long back in Recollections, Linda Williams' Recollections, and bless
um,
the books, they are in India at my parents' place. But the two that stand out, the Sri Hanumana,
yeah.
and Sri Ganesha, and
Oh
I
yeah.
third one as well, where you offer the puja to the deities.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
is it possible
yeah,
to share?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that the Hanumana one was really crazy, because I was going out to, in Australia, the most remote township in Australia is a place called Birdsville, and it's right in the New South Wales, South Australia, Victoria, Northern Territory border. It's kind of right in that little enclave. It's in the middle of nowhere. And
Mhm.
you drive for days and days without seeing another car, because it's literally like Martian moonscape all around you. There's nothing there. And so we were driving out to Birdsville, and we just covered this was for the Australian. I was with a journalist, and we had a long range Land Cruiser where you'd have the two petrol tanks to fill. And so you take loads of water and all that. And we didn't have a satellite phone or anything. In those days, you needed a sat phone. We didn't have one. So we were on our own. So what we used to do was ring ahead, to each place and tell them where we are. As we were on our way, the last stage over to Birdsville, my partner had forgotten to ring ahead. So we had to make it. It was probably about a 9-hour drive just through the desert, and we had the long range fuel tank, etc. We hadn't seen a car in days, it was like that. And it was Christmas Eve. It was really, really hot. It was like the hottest Christmas in 50 years or something crazy like that. And so it was so hot, you when you touch the window, it was just heat, but we had the air conditioning. It was all good. So we're driving along, and we come down this kind of, it's all unsealed road, so all just dirt road. We come down this one hill, and I see at the bottom of the hill something that doesn't look quite right. I'm driving. It doesn't look quite right. It's not the same road, as it's just a sort of patchy looking, hard to describe, but just patchy and weird looking sort of little area of stretch of road, or unsealed road. And I said to my partner, "Well, what do you reckon about that?" And he's like, "Oh, nah, you'll be fine. You'll be fine." I'm like, "All right." So we just drive through it. You just stay the same speed and just aquaplane through it, is that what they usually say? So we drove down, and then we drove into this thing, and it was very silty sand, like quicksand kind of a thing, I guess you could say. And the car just sank straight into it. And it sank all the way down to the door line, the door
Oh,
line. So it was, and it's a heavy old Land Cruiser. It sank all the way. So all right, I just put it back into first again and tried to get it out. Wheels were spinning, nothing was happening. All right, well, let's get out. So we got out. It's really hot, 50 odd degrees, which is incredible. And we thought, all right, well, and this guy had all this Louis Vuitton luggage, because he was a really kind of elite level journalist, and really cool guy. But, he was like one of those sort of very elite
yeah.
guys. And And we thought, right, we're going to have to chock the wheels with something. There's nothing. It's Martian moonscape, right? So we got his Louis Vuitton luggage and we've packed it under the wheels. We're
That is
packing all
the
this
most ingenious use of a Louis Vuitton.
Louis Vuitton luggage. Very, very, very. He was happy to do it because he knew that the only alternative was we're going to die out here, you know. And a couple of days before that, we'd actually covered a Japanese motorcyclist who died in exactly the same circumstances. So we sort of knew, like, oh, you know, this is not boding well. So anyway, we chocked the wheels. Nothing happened. We couldn't get any traction. The things would just spit out. Oh, what do we do? What do we do? You know, and and then they say that you let your tires down a little bit. There's all these different techniques. We just didn't know like really what we were doing. And we were there for just standing with our hands on our hips, looking at this thing going, I don't know, what do we do? What do we do? And we've got to do something because we're going to die out here. And you can't leave the car. You will for sure die if you leave the car. What I realized later on, what the locals told us later on, was you burn a tire. If this ever happens to you, you burn a tire because the smoke, so you can use a magnifying glass or mirror or something, and you burn a tire, and then the plume of smoke, all of the local farmers, like, I mean, if you can call them farmers, like it's all just emus and stuff out there. Someone will see it and they'll know that
Signal,
that's
yeah, signals
the
of
sort of
help.
a signal, a universal signal out there, which we didn't even know. So anyway, we tried everything, nothing worked. And I thought maybe he'll get it out. He tried, he couldn't get it out. And I thought, all right, I'm gonna, you know. So I got in the car and I put myself in Bundan and I just kind of went into meditation, like as much as I could, you know, because we're all a bit like, I went into meditation, like, and I was just like, Lord Hanuman. I don't know why I'd never prayed to Lord Hanuman at that point, but I was like, so I thought he would, you know. So Lord Hanuman, please forgive me for my mistakes. Lord, but please, you have to get us out of here. You have to get us out of here. I humbly surrender this to you. Please get us out of here. And then I put the car into first gear, and this journalist is standing outside the car and he's just watching. And I put it into first gear and revved it all the way to kind of red line and then popped the clutch, you know. And then I just felt the whole thing just surged out, which had never happened because we'd already tried all this, but it surged straight out. And
Wow.
then so I drove maybe another 15 meters or something. Like I just wanted to be well clear of the area. I just drove another 15 or so meters, stopped the car, threw all the luggage back in the back. And this journalist up and down like a kid. And he's like, what's all this? What's all this? What did you do? I'm going, look, I just don't want to talk about it. Like, just get in the car. Like, let's go. He says, no, you have to tell me. You have to tell me what you did, what this. I said, nah, it's all right. He says, no, you don't understand. He says, because I was outside the car. I use my phone as a thing. What I felt was the car go like this, right? That's what I felt. I felt that there was physics, normal physics involved, you know, like car went out. He's like, no. The car went like this.
Wow.
He said it was like someone picked it up. He's telling me, because I didn't see anything. I'm in the car. It's like someone picked it up. And he said it came all the way out. That even the tires came out, like all the way out.
From
like
the
that.
gosh.
Yeah. And then it went across and it went down. And so then we get in the car, we're just driving. Oh, just like, oh, thank God, you know, it's the Lord Hanuman saved us, you know.
What did you make of it? Because you knew Lord Hanuman by then, although.
Yeah, we didn't speak much because I just didn't know how to talk about it, and I wasn't in really even though I love a chat, as you can tell, but I just wasn't in the mood to go into Sahaja Yoga and yada yada yada. You know, I was like, no, like we're lucky to be alive, you know. So anyway, we made it to Birdsville. We unload the car, we get into the hotel room, and I get this room, and it has, I kid you not, a black and white photograph of a horse and cart bogged in the same area like 100 years before or something like that. Wow. And I'm just looking at this picture going, am I in some kind of simulation or something? Like, what's going on? Right? It's like a parallel sort of universe or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was like Lord Hanumana, you know, and so that started a very, like, I then became really fascinated with Sri Hanuman. I used to say Hanuman Chalisa like every day, and you know, I would always turn to him kind of right away. And anyway, this led to a very interesting thing because, you know, there was one talk where Sri Mataji was saying that, you know, whenever we talk to Sri Mataji or we bandan or whatever, you're she says it's like, I can't remember the talk. I'm sure you yogis will know, but it's the one where she says, I'm the CEO. It's like you don't address everything to the CEO. You talk to the department managers. So
That's
the
right.
deities are the department managers. So she's saying if you've got a problem, you talk to the department manager like this. So so
Data confirmed. Yes. Gosh.
so anyway, we were going through a bit of a hard time in Dubai. I'd started a business. This was in 2013. And we'd started a business and just nothing was happening. Like I couldn't get any traction, nothing was happening. And we were a bit stuck, like what do we do? Running out of money. And so anyway, we thought, let's do puja. Like let's do a puja and ask the deities. We'll go to the department managers and we'll ask them. So we did a proper puja, like a sit down, like 5 elements, everything. We did the whole thing. We had bhajans, mantras, everything, 5 elements, the whole thing. So so we when we did it, we started with a puja to Sri Ganesha, and then I asked Sri Ganesha, like, please, Lord, remove the obstacles to the success of my business, you know. Then the next one was Sri Mahalakshmi, because she's the bestower of wealth and prosperity. So we just asked, Mother, please bless us with wealth and prosperity, and please let the business be successful. We said some mantras, we sang Mahalakshmi Stotram, and so on. Then we had Sri Hanumana, and then we said Hanuman Chalisa, and we sang that really lovely Hanuman bhajan, which I can't remember the name of, but it's really rousing. It's a really nice one.
And
And then,
Danny,
yes, that's the one. That's the one. Yeah, yeah. So then we just said to him, Lord, please forgive us again for our mistakes, but Lord, please can you work out something like with this, take action that this business should work out. So we picked those 3 deities because Sri Hanumana gets the job done, you could say. Sri Ganesha removes the obstacles, and if you see the names of Sri Ganesha, he's the bestower of success.
yeah.
You know, he the blessing of prosperity and auspiciousness, and so on and so on. So I mean, you just go straight to Sri Ganesh.
Yes.
And then Sri Mahalakshmi, and then 24 hours later, not even a full day, I get a phone call from an old work colleague. She says, oh, I'm at BBDO now, which is like a big global agency. She said, I've got a project. Can you come and see me? I'm like, oh, okay. So I went and saw her. And it turned out it was for the electrification of villages in Africa by GE. And so it was all bankrolled by GE in New York. And it was being run through BBDO in New York. And anyone who's in the advertising scene knows that that's the absolute Ivy League. It's the Ivy League agency. It's the
Top
Ivy
notch.
League client, you know.
Yeah.
And I just landed the biggest client from the biggest agency in the world in less than 24 hours after doing this puja. And we had to go to Africa and shoot the thing. So I thought, well, I'm going to take my son. You know, Sahaja was only 16 at the time, but I thought I need the vibrational help, you know, and he's a little born realized or big born realized, so we'll take him along. So he was my sound guy, right? So,
Right.
so, so anyway, we show up so anyway, a precursor to this whole thing working out was I'd got the film. I'd never made a film before, like proper film. I'd never.
One moment before you tell this part, can I just ask about the puja, because I know the viewers
Oh
and
yeah.
the listeners, they would like to know how you did it. Okay, you sang the bhajans and you took
Hmm.
the Shri Ganesha Trivashesham, Shri Mahalakshmi Stotram,
Mhm.
and then the Hanuman Chalisa and the bhajans. But what did you do for the puja? Please, can you just throw some
Yeah.
light on that?
So we started with the Ganesh Puja as you would with water on the photograph.
Yeah.
Ganesha Tavashisa Hemaja, like just a bhajan Hemaja,
Yeah.
whichever one you like. And then, but you've got to ask. You have to you have to cement your direct line communication from your heart to his feet, if you like, you know. So you have to establish that as and it's full bhakti. So as if you're going to read some names, maybe you don't want to sing, you can do the mantras, but you should be really aware of like what you're saying and honor him, you know, in the fullest sense. Then move to the five elements, and then we did I think it must have been Sri Hanumana for the five elements, and then you just do as you would a puja. So you have your five elements. Um, the Then we said Hanuman Chalisa, and then you can just pick some names. You just go through the 108 names. You don't have to say all 108 names. You can just pick some that
Yeah.
make you feel that bhakti and so on. And again, you ask for what you want, and then Sri Mahalakshmi, of course. And then with full bhakti, like you do your puja, everything all the way straight through to arti and all that. Meditate, and yeah, so it's your direct line of communication with them through your heart, you know. So that's what we did, and then the next day everything just worked out, which was like couldn't. I mean, I can't. It sounds too good to be true. Like I thought I would have been happy with anything, you know, but I got the biggest agency with the biggest client and this massive project. So I had to do this film, and I'd never made a film. And
Yes.
anyway, I'd made small little like social media kind of films, like little very low risk, low reward kind of films, you know. Anyway, I had to find a cinematographer to do this film. And I'd never worked with a cinematographer. I didn't know anything about them. I knew they existed, but I didn't know, you know, I knew there were like equipment rental houses that you could rent lights and cameras and things from. And I had a background as a photographer, but I wasn't confident as a filmmaker. That's a whole different expertise, you know. I knew a guy who knew a guy, and there was a BBC cameraman around who was going to do it. And then he pulled out at the last second because we were shooting in Nigeria, which was having a lot of problems with Boko Haram at that time. So no one would go. And I'm actually, in hindsight, I think that's why I probably got the project, because I was the only one who would go. No one else wanted to know about it. Maybe, right? So maybe she called me for that reason. I'm not sure. But anyhow, because why would she put all that faith in me who never made a film? But she knew I was a pretty decent creative director prior to that. So she knew we could sort of work out a way of executing. So anyway, I'm going to this gear rental place to hire some lights to shoot another thing altogether, you know, like small little thing. When I get there, this guy rings me, the BBC cameraman. This is like a week out from going on the shoot. I can't come. It's just not for me. I feel very uncomfortable with it. I just don't want to do it. And BBC cameramen are good, but it's not cinema. It's like documentary making. And we weren't making a documentary. We were doing a commercial. But see, I was so inexperienced, I didn't know anything, right? So even imagine these deities had to go, oh, this guy doesn't know anything. so, so anyway, I'm there. I'm trying to order these lights, and I'm standing, I get this phone call, and there's this lady standing in front of me, and she's very polite. She's just standing there, sort of smiling. And I hung up on the guy, and I'm like, what am I going to do now? And this lady says, oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't help but overhear your call. I actually represent cinematographers. I'm actually just returning a piece of equipment for one of the guys, and I heard you need a cinematographer. I represent them in Dubai. You know, what's the project? I tell her the project. She says, I've got just the guy for you. And it turned out that he was a cinematographer who'd shot Mission Impossible, Fast and Furious, Syriana. Like he'd done all of these very, very high level movies as a cinematographer. And I was like, oh, he's my guy. Like, bring him on. And he was South African. So he knew all about South African culture. He
Perfect.
knew how to manage. So I got this guy. He was absolutely crackers. He reminded me of like a character from like a war movie. You know, you always get those like really extreme guys who've seen too much action. You know, he was one of those sort of guys. But he was a brilliant, brilliant cinematographer. And he said, all right, I'll come and make your film, but I need my assistant. I said, okay, done. Bring your assistant. It's done. Like, just whatever it takes, you know? So I took him to Africa. So that was a miracle. So I got a Hollywood level guy. He taught me everything about film in the space
Wow.
of the 2 weeks we were together. So everything I learned right from a guy who I'd consider a master. He was really great. Anyway, when we were over there, it was everything started to go wrong, you know, like on the very first day we show up in Nigeria and we're at the hotel and all the power goes out. I can't make any phone calls now. So I go to the foyer of the hotel and I'm like, oh, like, look, I need to make calls. Like, can't you do something? No, I'm sorry, sir, phone lines are down, blah blah blah.
Mm.
And I'm like, no, but surely there's something. And then because you can't in Nigeria, it's very hard to get SIM cards. They're not that organized, you know, like, and we didn't know anything where to go or anything. And we had one fixer and he was just sort of like an office worker guy, didn't really know much. And then the guy behind me is huge, like 6 foot tall guy in a suit, you know, big African man. And he's like, "Oh, welcome to Nigeria." He says, "You're having problems." Yes, yes, yes. And I just explained. He says, "Well, I'm a businessman. I have many businesses in Nigeria." He says, "I'm going to give you a phone." He gives me a mobile phone. He says, "When are you back?" I said, "Oh, you know, we're back in 7 days or something." He says, "All right, just on your way to the airport, you call this number, you know, and then one of my boys will come to the airport and he'll pick the phone up from you. But just keep this phone and use it. It's on me."
Wow.
Who does that? Who does that? Like, that's not possible. That's a deity or something just kind of going, all right, this guy needs help. We have to pretend to be an African businessman now and give him. So it was really one of those things. Anyway, I got the phone. And the fixer I was with was a really lovely fella. Doesn't know anything about anything, but nice fella. Even worse than me, right? And anyway, he said about three-quarters of the way through this trip, he's like, "How is this working out?" He says, "Everything is just working out for you. This never happens. Like all these one thing after the next, like everything's clicked into place, like really beautifully." And anyway, so we had that drama. All our equipment nearly got stolen at the airport, but we saw it as we were boarding the plane. I saw it, and then I raised the alarm, and they went and rescued the gear. It was just chaotic, the whole thing. Anyway, we needed lighting, which we didn't have, and Abuja is a very like sparse place. There's not much going on in Abuja, you know, with this sort of thing. And anyway, we need lighting because we have to do a sign. We have to do the little township, little village being lit up. You know, we need lights, so the kids need to read under some lights. You know, we didn't have any lights. Oh, what the hell are we going to do now? So I'm standing in front of a school because we're trying to find kids who could be the voiceover for the film. Standing in front of the school. I'm on the phone, just trying to ring anybody. I'm just looking for any because you know I had some numbers. I'm trying to call people. Nothing. No one knows anything. And this lady again walks up to me. She says, "Oh, I couldn't help but hear you on the phone." Right? Another one, right? And anyway, I say, "Yeah, yeah, I've got to find lights." And she says, "Oh, my husband is a wedding videographer. He has some lights, very basic ones, but maybe you could use those." I'm like, "Oh, like not only that, let's bring him along. He can be our lighting guy." So we seconded this poor lady's husband and brought him up to the village, and he was our lighting guy. And we managed to get the film done. And when I got the film done, I sent it in and through my client, and I didn't know if it was good or bad. Anyone who does any creative work knows you always hate your own work and you always feel it's never any good, and and you hate yourself and all this sort of thing. So anyway, it's always like self-flagellation. I'm no good, and this is no good, and I don't know what I'm doing. And anyway, uh, it goes,
Internal battles.
it goes into this sort of black hole, and
Yeah.
then about 2 days later, my client starts sending me all these films because it was a global campaign. And there were all these films from China, Korea, Germany, and so on. And they were beautiful. Like they were incredibly well executed with, drone overhead shots and, beautiful, rousing music. And it was really, really good. And ours was nothing like that. Ours was like very homespun, had a bit of a homespun vibe to it. And I was like, oh my God, like we're nowhere. These are fantastic and we're absolutely nowhere. And I was saying to my editor, like, well, what do you reckon? Like he's going, no, 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 it's fine. Don't worry, don't worry. Anyway, we the client, everyone's gone quiet. And then 2 days later, a single line email comes back from GE in New York, and it just says, top of the class.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, okay. I don't know why it's top of the class, but somehow it's top of the class. Okay. And they ran it Pan Africa across the entire continent, 90 seconds untouched across the whole place. They didn't touch the edit. They added one small little detail at the very end of the film. They didn't touch anything I did. They just bought it as it was. And then they made all of the other filmmakers go out and reshoot their stuff to make it more authentic and warm and human and stuff like that. So it was just like, what's going on? So but anyway, in the midst of all that, the idea for the film actually came from Shri Mataji, because they were like, we got to do the villages. We got to electrify the villages. How do we do it? And I remembered that story that Shri Mataji told, which was the elephant in the room, and they feel the leg of the elephant. They think it's like a pipe, or they feel the trunk, it's like a water spout. The body is like a wall, like in the dark, right? And then when the light comes on, they see it's an elephant. So you have to have your enlightenment to understand the truth. So I thought that's the film. I'm going to get that story. I'm going to get a kid to do that story. So I rewrote that story as a 90-second film. And then we just did a slice of village life, of all the village life. And then the sun goes down and then the lights come on, and
Beautiful.
and it was all, yeah, it was just Shri Mataji. I can't even take credit. I can't take credit for getting the film. I can't take credit for the idea. I can't take credit for anything.
Oh, that's amazing story. Oh, and do you have the copyrights? Because we could put the link with your interview for people
Oh,
to
I mean, you
watch
throw it up.
perfectly.
I'm sure it'd be fine. Like
Yeah.
normally you can share those things as part of your,
Okay.
as part of your work, or whatever, like a work portfolio or promoting yourself, whatever. Normally it's okay,
Yeah,
so
that'd be
yeah,
great. And hopefully, I mean, GE is a big name, and BBDO, yes. I mean,
yeah,
to top
yeah.
um, advertising agencies and companies there. So hopefully that film is, we
Oh.
hope and pray that it leads people to watch the interview and then get the self-realization through.
Well, a lot of the comments when GE put the film up themselves, a lot of the comments were like, "Wow, finally a story about enlightenment," and so on. And it was quite touching to see the comments. Like the commentary was really that people would pass on the YouTube video. I think the YouTube video is down now. I couldn't find it, but I have my version of it.
We'll use
So
that link to share.
yeah, so that was crazy, and I'd never made a film before, and that was how I got blessed by those deities. And I just attribute it 100% to them. I was not getting anywhere with this, and then in 24 hours it'll turn around. So definitely, I don't, it's not even belief, it's knowing. They're there, they exist, they're the way I see them in my small mind is that we we see them as Sri Ganesha, elephant-headed god, or Sri Hanumana, and we know that they've manifested in different forms throughout history, like Angel Gabriel and so on. But I think what happens is it's a field of conscious energy that's almost like Shri Mataji has broken her conscious energy into like a rainbow of conscious energy, and each band of energy, if you want to call it that, has a very specific role and a very specific um, series of attributes, which you could say like wisdom and innocence, Shri Ganesh, and so on and so on. And they have a very precise role, but they can exist everywhere, all at once, all the time, for all
Yeah.
beings.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's just energy. It's energy directed, in a way. And yeah. So anyway, that's just my own like two bobs
Well,
worth.
yes,
And
it is. It actually, yes, it is the all-pervading, all-permeating, omnipresent, omniscient power of God Almighty, isn't it? And it's there in so
it,
many
it seems
forms Mataji has revealed to us.
yeah, it sort of pushes through into our conscious world as symbolism,
Yeah.
like so like as in elephant-headed god and so on, and yeah. So then what was the other one that we were
There
going to?
was Sri Ganesha one as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I had another one which we didn't talk about previously, which was also a pretty crazy experience where on India tour.
uh-huh,
um we showed up on the first day. This would have been 1994, was early, or 93, something like that. So we show up, we're in, Connaught, getting our kurta pajamas. I don't know if you were around in those days, but it was a rite of
my
passage.
husband was
You
probably on
land,
that tour.
you go to Connaught Circus or whatever it's called, and they've
Connaught
got those
Place in Delhi, yeah.
cardi, they've got those cardi
Oh, it's a brilliant shop, the Khadi
places, and
Ashram.
so you get your kurtas, and you go back up to Nizamuddin, the
Yes.
campsite. So I'm with this American guy. It's his first tour. It's my second tour. So I had a half an idea. I was comfortable enough to get in a rickshaw, talk to the guy, like basic stuff. But he'd never been to India before. So he was like in a bit of a panic, like, about the place. So we'd done our stuff. We get in this rickshaw. I say to the guy, Nizamuddin, and the rickshaw driver, and he's what, like a bit like this, and he went, okay, okay, like this, and he starts driving, and I had a little bit of a doubt, like, oh, does he know? But then the vibrations were so nice. I thought, it's okay. He knows where to go. I'll just relax. So I was just relaxing. I was just sitting there looking out over the city. And next thing you know, I have this like really panicky thought. I'm feeling very silent, very serene. I have this panicky thought. This guy doesn't know where we're going. We're never going to get there. Like this sort of a thought. And I witnessed the thought, and I was like, nah, it's all right. Fine. I just dismissed it. And then the American guy grabs me by the arm and he says, this guy doesn't know where we're going. We're never going to get there. And I realized I'm thinking his thoughts. I'm seriously thinking his thoughts, right? That was a weird experience. So anyway, we got a chance to see Shri Mataji in Delhi at that time. And I told Shri Mataji about it. I said, oh, mother, I had this really funny experience. I mentioned, that. And she said, no. She said, have you heard of the 100 monkey theory? And I was like, no, Shri Mataji. Like she was, so full of like, even if you didn't think she was anything divine, you just got to think, where does normal people don't know these things, like just pluck it out of the sky, Have you heard of the 100 monkey theory? And then she was saying that there was a study where they followed these monkeys on these various islands somewhere near Japan, and monkeys would one monkey would wash its fruit in the water and it wouldn't get sick. So other monkeys witnessed that and were like, oh, okay, well, maybe we should do that. And when that number hit 100 of monkeys who were washing their fruit, just whatever the instance was, but in this case, that's what it was.
Yeah.
That same intuition would be carried through to monkeys unrelated to those monkeys on the other islands. So they intuitively understood they have to wash their fruit, right? So anyway, she said that's how Sahaja Yoga is going to work out in the world. She said you have to hit a tipping point. It's like there's a threshold level, And when we hit that point, it would just permeate through the whole world, and it'll become an intuitive, instinctive thing that people want to follow. So anyway, I was being a bit cheeky, and so I said, "But mother, like, if we think about you, our bhakti for you, is that, well, this is how the whole thing started, actually. I was like, so mother, if we think about our bhakti for you, will other people catch that? Like, and she's like, yes, that's absolutely what happens. That's absolutely how it works. Then so we just have to be focused as yogis, you know, and give realization, and we'll hit a threshold where everyone will instinctively want to meditate, you know, or take to Sahaja Yoga. And you can see it happening. You can actually see, like, one thing I've noticed is that when I was a seeker, I didn't know no one knew what meditation was, really, and no one knew anything about anything. And it was a very fringe thing. You had to be a hippie or whatever. Now it's very mainstream and people accept. You can kind of see the whole thing shifting just with our number of yogis and the evolutionary sort of, you know, the way things are moving. And so yeah, so it was a really wonderful kind of experience. But there's an addendum to that one as well, because there's a story
Mm.
that, well, I was working in Abu Dhabi in 2008, 2009. And I was doing that technique which I told you about, where you watch your thoughts. I was in a meeting, and the meeting was probably 25 people in the room, and I had this art director partner. He and I teamed up quite a lot. He was a really lovely Muslim man, a very good-hearted guy, and very spiritual, but he just was very conditioned. He was never gonna, you know, take to Sahaja Yoga. But good guy and very sensitive to spiritual things. So anyway, we're there in this meeting, and I'm just putting my attention on my thoughts, and I'm just, because it's a boring meeting and there's a girl just rabbiting on. So I just put my attention on my thoughts, and I just stilled myself, and I was just sitting and I was just watching the room, just looking around the room. I was feeling very still, and I could feel this, you know, when you come into, when you feel someone else meditating. I think we've all had that experience where when you walk into a house or something, you know, like, oh, someone's meditating, and you can feel that they're maybe in the bedroom or maybe in the living room, whatever. I could feel that this peace, this silence descending over the room. I could feel it, you know. And I was just watching, and I was watching my partner just looked at his face, and he looked completely still. He's not even a yogi or anything like that, but he just looked completely still. And then I looked at the girl next to him. She looked completely still. They just looked empty, you know, like just silent. Anyway, and the lady's talking at the front of the room, and you could just feel this peace just permeate across the whole room. And this was being generated later, I realized, from myself, you know, like, just because I'd put myself into that state. I had no idea at the time, but I was just witnessing this. And I was looking at the lady talking, and all of a sudden she just stopped talking. And she was just like, I've just gone completely blank. What was I even saying? Like this. At which point everyone just burst out laughing, because everyone was feeling it. The way everyone reacted, I realized that they were blank, and that lady had gone blank, and she's talking. She's got the room, and even she can't think. And anyway, I thought afterwards, oh my God, I think I did that. Like, not intentionally, but the knock-on effect of my just trying to meditate in this room, you know. And you realize that that's your effect as a yogi, you know. Like, if you're in the zone, if you can stay silent and you're a proper yogi in the zone, other people get it, they feel it, right? So anyway, I was reading in one of the Puranas story about this jester and a king. And the jester says, the king says to the jester, who's the most powerful man in the, you know, in my kingdom? And he says, oh, actually, it's the old guy down at the temple, you know. So, because that's the job of the jester, is to poke the king, isn't it? You know, like, prod him into, you know, prod his ego. He's got, how dare you suggest that some old man down at the temple? He's going, no, come and have a look. So they go down to the temple, and there's a saint meditating in this temple. And so the story goes that they all come in and they feel the meditation of this old saint, and they all go into meditation. So they're all sitting there together in this silent state. And the story goes 3 days later, the saint moved his mind. That's the line they use, moved his mind, and everyone kind of came out of it. And then the king, in his humility, realized that that man had given everyone this somehow this blessing had permeated from this saint, and that he was indeed the most powerful man in the kingdom from that point, even though he was just a raggedy old man with a stick, you know. So
Beautiful story that is. And
so 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 yeah, so I think that's the inherent power that we have,
Yes.
is to be one with, just to be one with God, and just our presence, like in that sense, you know. And you don't realize your growth. Like, I think that's another thing that I've come to terms with recently. I was working with a guy recently, and you know, he said one day, he says, and we were good friends, and he says, "You frustrate me." And I'm like, "Why?" He says, "Because you never react." And I'm like, "Really?" Because I think I react. Like, I think I react. Like, I'm just like, I'm as liable to fly off the handle as the next guy, I think, right? But he didn't think so, right? So we're so he's going, "No, you don't react." He says, "Everything that happens, you just take it in your stride. I've never seen you react." And I'm like, "Are you sure?" Like, I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure. He says, "No, no, 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 no." And when I left the whole project, when I left, one of the guys said, "You know, I've really enjoyed working with you." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you. That's really nice of you," you know. And I took, it was one of those projects where I was a very, like, not the leader or anything. I was just like a minion in the whole thing, you know, just another guy, you know. And at the end of the project, this guy's like, "You know, you have no ego." And I'm like, "Really? What makes you say that?" He says, "No, no, you just, like, you take everything in your stride. You don't, you're not reacting to things. You're not responding in an egotistical way or anything like that." And then I realized, like, oh well, we yogis, the we yogis are we're probably further down the track than we think, because we're with other yogis, and we
yes.
see our brothers and sisters, and we see the bar's quite high. Like, I would say some of the most amazing people I've ever met have been in Sahaja Yoga, and if you were to compare yourself to them, you think, "Oh, I'm not really anywhere near where they are," you know, as an individual in their own progress. But then in the real world, if you want to call it that,
Yes.
you know, we're actually like, you know, people feel it. People do feel from us that we've got some connection, you know, and
It really is very positive, isn't it? Because that's how we hope to be Shri Mataji's humble instrument and her hollow flute to play as she wants us to be. What's really remarkable is how you shared the 100 monkeys syndrome, let's
oh
say.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
when,
yeah. She was
yeah.
adamant that that basically there was a threshold, and we just had to hit that threshold. That's all.
Yes, so that's where we are striving. And when we started recording these golden memories for the first time in 2010, um, the Sahaja Yogi was from South Africa. He teaches, he's also a filmmaker. So he directed, I mean, this was such a spontaneous thing. And Linda Williams, who collated the recollections, she shared this 100 monkey syndrome and how
Mm.
we need that critical mass, the threshold, and
Yeah.
we hope it happens sooner.
Oh, actually, there was a point to that story which I actually forgot to mention, which was that um, the reason Shrimanji went on to say that the reason why you take Bundan is because you are catching the thoughts of other people. So you're protecting yourself from those thoughts, and that essentially thoughts travel in an electromagnetic field. So they're not even in your head. It's an electromagnetic field that sort of is around your head. Like, there's a bit of science behind that. But
Yeah.
but she did say that when you do catch the thoughts of people, and then you can project your thoughts to people as well. and that so we were talking about self-realization, like can you give self-realization without people knowing? And she's like, no, 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 they have to know, because they have to know why they've got it. They'll get it, but they have to know what it is and why they got it. They have to know it's from you, or it's from her, or it's from Sahaja Yoga. They have to know that that's the source of their self-realization. So even though they can get it from your attention and from your, maybe, from behind or whatever, that's not the point.
Not enough.
But the interesting thing is, though, that you do catch the thoughts of other people, and you can feel it. And when you enter an atmosphere, you can feel the vibe, like, and we think it's just all intuition, but actually you're catching the vibe of the room, which is why you take a bandhan. And she did tell me that you should take a bandhan every time you're in a new situation. So she was saying, so whenever you go, like, let's say you're driving to work. So as you leave the house, you take a bandhan, as we all should, when we leave home. You drive to work in the car park. Once you've parked your car, take a bandhan. But she said you can do it with your attention. You don't have to do it in your like full bandhan.
Physically do it,
You
yeah.
can just close your eyes and you can mentally take a bandhan.
Yes.
And then she was saying, you're going into a meeting, take a bandhan. Take a bandhan. Like everything, take a bandhan, but just in your attention. And then I did this because my job was all about meeting people back in those days. And you get terribly caught up. You come home and you feel really caught up. And you'd clear out, but it was always an ordeal. And when I started doing that, I noticed I didn't catch much at all. Like I'd come home, I'd be a little maybe right side, this, that, whatever the usual stuff is. But you find that you're not catching other people when you're taking a bandhan in those everyday moments.
Absolutely, yeah. Such a protection and such a blessing from Shri Mataji for all of us. And thank you so much for sharing such lovely stories and bringing it to life for our viewers, fellow Sahaja Yogis, and seekers to come in posterity. That's great, Mark. Thank you very much for joining
No
us.
worries at all. No worries at all. I hope it helps. Like I think the main thing for me is that if other people can feel like because Sahaja Yoga ultimately, sorry, I'll leave you one point. It's all about experience, direct experience. Like you can have all the mental stuff, you can know about chakras, you can be a really good-hearted person, you can have a lot of bhakti. Ultimately, it's your spiritual experience. That's what's gonna help you ascend, and that's what's gonna keep you in and keep you interested. And you have to yearn for that. You have to pray for it. You have to meditate on it. And that should be a core part of you as an individual, like rather than getting lost in all the other stuff. Like I would even put that ahead of knowledge of the chakras. Like if you just yearn for it so much that you're having those spiritual experiences, whether it be a dream of Shri Mataji, or whether it be even just feeling something, or even just having one really great meditation that it's irrefutable. Like no one can take Sahaja Yoga from you when you can say, yeah, but I had that experience, and no one can take that away from you. So yeah, so I would definitely say that experience is the key, and you should really push hard and really yearn for it.
Fantastic. And fantastic to hear what Shri Mataji actually directly told you in so many places on so many occasions. So
Yeah, I was very blessed, I would say, and I was just lucky because I was just right place at the right time a lot of the time, just like stumble in and there's your chance, and so it was just my luck.
divine design, isn't it? Nothing's a coincidence, but thank you so much for taking the time out, and we look forward to more. Thanks for today. Jai Shri Mataji. Thank you, Shri Mataji, for making it happen. Thank you for
Thank
all
you.
your blessings. And thank you, Mark. Thanks so much for joining us. Jai Shri Mataji.
Yes,